There. My name is Ibn Insan Sauti, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Broaden-and-Build Theory. So the first question that we're going to ask here today is, what exactly is the Broaden-and-Build Theory? Now, the Broaden-and-Build Theory is a theory originally proposed by Barbara Fredrickson in 1998. It's a positive psychology field which focuses on the use of positive emotion to broaden an individual's action repertoire alongside building enduring personal resources. Now, positive emotions such as joy encourage physical, playful, and social behavior, while negative emotions encourage a more narrowed thought action such as attack, escape, or expel. This is sort of a survival tactic where the body and mind seeks to preserve itself when coping with negative emotions or a stressor. While with positive emotions, there is no threat to handle, and in the absence of this negative stress, the mind can flourish and build off of the experience. It should also be noted that there's a difference between positive emotion and positive mood. Emotions are focused on something personal and meaningful. They're a fleeting moment and then they're gone, while moods are generally unfocused, objectless, and are long lasting. These positive affects that I've mentioned can have a range of additional effects. These being to undo lingering negative emotions and arousal, fuel our resilience, build personal resources, trigger upward spirals of well-being, and flourish seeds of growth, all of which we are going to be observing today. So, to answer the question of what is the use of this Broaden-and-Build theory, I want to first go over a couple of studies. Now, there have been a large variety of different studies, and in accordance with the Broaden-and-Build theory, all studies have built upon the original research. Things such as Koch and Fredrickson studies have acknowledged possible physical uses, while studies such as Cohn, Fredrickson, Johnson all expand upon Fredrickson's point in her original article. There are even a few which take her original theory and create new uses for it. Without further ado, I'm going to start delving into the studies we have before. Now, the first study I want to take a look at is a study called Happiness Unpacked: Positive Emotions to Increase Life Satisfaction by Building Resilience. Now, the goals of this study were to determine if positive emotion can increase your ego resilience, as well as if positive emotions can affect your an increase in life satisfaction through resilience as a mediator. Now, the first thing to look at here is that what ego resilience is. Ego resilience is noted to be the ability to adapt to a changing environment. So it can be seen a little bit like your fight or flight response, which is an instant adaptation, which is in line with what we're looking at for the Broaden-and-Build theory, focusing on emotions. High ego resilience can cause a positive emotion response to a stressor, which means you'll probably react more calmly to it. You'll be able to handle it easier and not as aggressively versus someone with many negative emotions who will have a poor response to stressor and will use the flight option. Now, these different emotions help build our resources, such as identifying opportunities to recover from adversities. To look at this, we have a study here where its original was 120 participants. However, the overall number at the end of the study had dropped down to 86. Positive emotions, as noted on the PANIS scale, are amusement, awe, compassion, contentment, gratitude, hope, interest, joy, love, pride, and negative emotions include anger, contempt, disgust, embarrassment, fear, guilt, sadness, and shame. Now, these will all come back multiple times throughout this presentation as we look at different types of studies measuring different things. So what was measured in this study were their emotions via the PANIS, the positive affect negative affect scale, their ego resilience measured via the ER 89, in their satisfaction with life, which is measured by the satisfaction with life scale. Now, the ER89 is a 4-point Likert scale, which measures 14 items, while the satisfaction with life scale measures 5 items on a 7-point scale. So what was the procedure for this was a simple self-report questionnaire which was filled out by its participants every day for 28 days. At the end of this, the results were collected and totaled up and observed. The results of this being that a finding that positive emotions correlate with an increase in resilience and satisfaction with life. That positive emotions mediate the relationship between initial and final resilience scores, and that a higher resilience through positive emotion correlates with higher life satisfaction. All this was found to be within a 0.001 strong correlation. And this falls in accordance with the Broaden-and-Build Theory, as positive emotions broadened the resilience and created opportunity for growth. The positive emotions that were measured throughout the week also were found to partially cancel out negative emotions that people felt during the time, meaning that the positive emotions that they felt overall were able to decrease the effect overall that negative emotions had on them. Now, the next study that I want to look at was a study with the goals to observe if daily positive emotions could compound over time and help build an individual's personal resources. Now, personal resources being things such as connectedness, social, cognitive resources, physical resources that people have. And if daily positive emotions were compounding over time to build up personal resources, it would line up with the Broaden-and-Build Theory. So there were 139 working adults divided into two groups. A group that partook in loving kindness meditation, which is meant to increase warmth and caring for self and others. And these positive feelings that are meant to arise help reshape enduring personality traits such as extroversion, resilience, etc., etc. The other group was a control group. And during the study, what was measured was the cognitive, psychological, social, and physical resources, along with the participants' satisfaction with life. So for this procedure, participants went through 7 weeks of 60 minutes loving and kindness meditation sessions. These range from a various number of things. The first week focused on self-love. Second week focused on love for your close friends. The 3rd through 7 weeks focused on increasing ambiguity with your feelings of love, starting with acquaintances and moving to strangers, and ultimately ending with living beings in general. Now, this is important to note that we start with self-love and we branch out to life overall as it flows the easiest for us. It's easier to respect ourselves than it is for us to respect others. So we have to slowly build ourselves up to that point. Now, each session ended with a 20-minute group meditation as opposed to the individual meditation that they had been taking up to that point. What was found ultimately was that utilization of loving kindness meditation over time increased your positive emotion. And on top of that, the amount of time spent doing loving kindness meditation also affected your positive emotion level. So the longer meditation was carried out in spare time, the more effect it had, essentially compounding your positive emotions, which falls in line with our Broaden-and-Build Theory. It was found that loving kindness meditation did not influence our negative emotions, however, which means that feelings of negative emotions were felt just as intensely with or without the loving kindness meditation. However, it was found that it did increase personal resources, including mindfulness, sense of purpose, social support, and decreased illness. And an increase in these resources predicted greater life satisfaction overall. So those of us with these resources already readily available to us will probably have a greater sense of life satisfaction versus someone who does not have those resources available to them. And with that said, I'd like to move on to the next topic. The goals of this study here were to show cognitive broadening can be produced by frequent facial expressions of positive emotion. These frequent facial expressions being Duchenne smiles or genuine smiles. There are two types of smiles. There are Duchenne smiles, which are smiles that arouse from general feelings of positive emotion, and then there are non-Duchenne smiles, which are smiles. You smile. Now, this was broken into two different experiments to get a better grasp of the topic matter. The first experiment was to examine the effects of an individual emotions on holistic processing and attentional breadth. The second experiment were to utilize alternate methods rather than what was utilized in the first experiment to broaden the scopes of emotion on attentional breadth. Now, the overall participants in the study were 162 college students. The first experiment had 100 and the second had 62. What was measured were the Global Task for Baseline and Attentional Scope, or the GTBAS, and emotional self-reports using the PANIS scale in E1. In E2, they utilized a differential emotional scale, the DEF, and the covert attentional orienting task scale, or the CAOT. Now, before the study began, each participant was screened for levels of their NEO, their neuroticism, optimism, and extroversion, as well as their optimism overall via the life orientation test to set a baseline for each of the participants to go on. What was produced here during their measurements for attention was the ability to reaction time to the presence of a set target. In the case of these experiments, experiment 1 being a button pressed whenever they noticed the absence of a letter T on the screen, the letter T could be shifted in any position, but if it was not there, they were to press the button, and it was to measure if they missed it altogether or if they caught it. E2 had a very similar thing, except this time the presence of a black box on the lateral of two different three boxes. Three boxes were lined up, and they were told to look at the center box, and a black box would appear in the left or right, and it was their job to react quick enough to find and utilize it. Press the button and identify it. My bad. Now, the procedure for the first experiment was that the participants, before starting it, took the GT Bass, as stated earlier. Now, they were allowed as many attempts as they wanted to try and get used to taking it before they set their baseline. After this, they were allowed to engage in 90 seconds of silent meditation, and then emotions were attempted to be induced in them via video clips. And participants, after seeing those video clips, were told to reflect for a minute. Now, these video clips attempted to induce feelings of amusement, anger, anxiety, contentment, disgust, fear, happiness, joy, sadness, and serenity. And the results of this being that the video cues, which were indicative of positive emotion, produced positive emotions, of course. And inductive positive emotions led to more Duchenne smiles as well as non-Duchenne smiles. This meaning that, if the video was a video trying to express something of joy, they displayed something of joy. In addition to this, the negative inductions also produce negative emotions. So if it was meant to induce anger or sadness, it would usually induce that via a furrowed brow. Alright, so the Duchenne smiles were shown to increase your attentional scope, as in when they performed their GT Bass after taking the exam, they were found to be able to, individuals who experienced more Duchenne smiles from their inductions were shown to be able to identify the presence of the T in their boxes more quicker. For the second experiment, participants were taking the differential emotion scale, which was a PANIS, which utilized the PANS states, or, such as happiness, joy, so on and so forth. And the CAOT, or the Covert Attentional Orientating Task, which was to identify a target in the box as described earlier. The lateral of the three boxes were induced. Now, what happened in this one, they were also allowed to take the CAOT as many times as they want before they set their baseline and engage again in the silent 90-second meditation. Emotions were induced via music and written statements in this trial. So they would read things such as, for instance, Bob went to this restaurant and Bob didn't get what he ordered and he felt mistreated and unfair. Or music was played, either bright and happy music to induce happiness or metal, dark music to induce negative emotions. What was found after this was that a higher frequency of Duchenne smiles predicted an increased attentional flexibility, meaning that the Duchenne smiles in this one also helped increase when they caught the box. They were able to catch it faster, reproduce it, and overall the cognitive breadth was broadened, which is one of the focuses of the Broaden-and-Build method. Now, one thing that was also found was that the Duchenne smiles were shown to correlate strongly with feelings of hope and contentness, while non-Duchenne smiles were shown to relate more to pride and awe. However, furrowed brows were related to negative emotions such as shame. And moving on from this presentation to the next. Now, the goal of this study here was to examine correlation between satisfaction with life and how it mediates gratitude and its effect on materialism. This was also divided into two separate studies. Now, the study gives the definition of gratitude as a warm sense of appreciation, a sense of goodwill towards what is being appreciated, and a resultant disposition to act politely due to the previous sense of goodwill and appreciation. Gratitude can increase life satisfaction. Ultimately, materialism was found to be an attachment to our worldly possessions, how much we value what we have, and how much importance we place on the value of what we have. Now, this was measured via several different things. The satisfaction with life scale for S1 was satisfaction with life scale, the gratitude scale, and the Richens and Dawson scale. And for S2, the same scales were utilized with the addition of the PANIS added in. Now, the procedure for the first study were just a simple survey and then measurements recorded from that survey. The results of this found the hypothesis to be true, and satisfaction with life does mediate gratitude to materialism. So those who felt satisfied with life felt more gratitude and less materialism, whereas those who were materialistic felt less gratitude and less satisfaction with life. For the second study, participants were assigned into two groups. One group designed to induce high gratitude and one group designed to induce low gratitude or envy. Now, the high gratitude group was told to reflect on the highs of life, and then they were screened for their PANIS and their feeling of materialism and gratitude. Then, after that, they were told to write a list of things they are grateful for. And after that list was written, they were taken their satisfaction with life scale. Now, for the low gratitude group or the envy group, they wrote down the initials of someone that they felt envious of. And then they took their test for materialism, gratitude, and their PANIS. After that, they were told to write about a time describing that they felt that feeling of envy arise in them. Then they were allowed to take their satisfaction with life scale. Now, the high gratitude group was shown to have more feelings of satisfaction with life and less feelings of materialism, while the envy group felt less satisfaction with life and gratitude, and they didn't really have an effect on the materialism. which overall means that while positive emotions can make us feel more gratitude and more satisfaction with our lives as a whole, that they don't they may not have a true effect on how we feel materialistically, as negative emotions did not make us value our possessions more than positives did. So the next study here took the focus on to proving that those with high connectedness and positive emotions have a stronger vagal tone. Now, vagal tone is the activity of the vagus nerve controlling the heart rate, which is its autonomic flexibility. It's part of the parasympathetic nervous system, and so it also controls arousal and attention, which are all linked to how we change and react. This falls in line with that earlier statement I made about the Broaden-and-Build theory being a minor reflection of our fight or flight response. So what we have is high vagal tone being linked to an upward spiral, meaning that it can lead to compounding overall health and satisfaction. High vagal tone people who possess that usually show greater cognitive flexibility, fewer negative responses to stressors, and greater self-regulatory capacity, which falls in line, of course, with the Broaden-and-Build theory. Those who feel positive emotions have a better reaction to stressor, and they're able to expand and learn and grow from it, versus those with feeling negative emotions who will instead make an immediate and quick decision to deal with the stressor. Now, participants in the study were 73 adults aged 21 to 68, and they were measured for their vagal tone using respiratory sinus arrhythmia, RSA, and an ECG. Their social interactions via the UCLA Loneliness Scale, which is a 7-point scale utilizing 2 items, feeling like I feel in tune with the people around me, and I felt close to these people during my interactions. They also utilize the daily emotion scale, or the differential emotional scale, to measure their daily emotions, which is a 5-point scale using the same measurements as the PAMIS, with the additional values of serenity and hatred. The procedure for this were that at the beginning of the study, their baseline vagal tones were measured, and data taken during the vagal tone baseline were excluded if they could not identify peaks or valleys in the vagal tone. They spent the next 63 days filling out the UCLA Loneliness Scale and Daily Emotional Report surveys at the end of the day to describe the 3 social interactions they had the day. And those social interactions were the ones that they spent the most time in, meaning if they spent 5 to 10 minutes with several people, those would be the 3 they reported on. However, if they spent like just brief interactions like waving hi, goodbye, or saying something in passing to someone, those would be the 3 that they used, whichever one was the longest. And after the end of the 9 weeks, they retook their RSA to measure their vagal tone again. So the results of the study was that the hypothesis was actually proven, and individuals who had a high vagal tone displayed increasing personal positive emotions throughout the study. In addition to this, those who had higher vagal tones also displayed a higher amounts of negative emotions, meaning that you're more likely to experience both. You're more likely to experience more negative emotions as well as positive emotions. However, the negative emotions did not stick and did not last, or have an overlasting impact on the persons who felt them. Now, individuals who started off with a strong vagal tone were shown to have an increased feeling of connectedness throughout the trial, meaning if you started off with either a high positive emotion or a high vagal tone, you were more likely to make more social interactions and compound that high vagal tone in high positive emotion. If you went in with high vagal tone, you oftentimes left with a higher vagal tone, a higher personal emotion, and a higher sense of connectedness, versus going in with a lower vagal tone, where you would still probably more than likely end with a higher vagal tone as long as you had experiences of positive emotions or connectedness. This is as they were shown to be all linked together. Next study was to a study to develop a model for changing leader membership exchange, or LMX, using the Broaden-and-Build model. For this, there were 248 employees and 40 team leaders as a part of the study. Who were really being observed in this study, however, were the employees. Now, it was found that creativity is a strong factor of your leader-member exchange. Creativity is tested via the interpretation and excellence in relationship quality. Employees possessing good relationship with leaders will have more change-oriented behavior overall. And it was hypothesized that your leader membership exchange is positively related to creativity and taking charge. The second hypothesis focuses on the broadening aspect of a leader membership exchange, while the third hypothesis focused on the building action of a leader membership exchange. So this meaning broadening of a leader membership exchange means it'll broaden your sense of emotions overall. You'll be able to feel more positive emotions. You'll be able to feel more usefulness in your job, in your field, while building focuses on the building of connectedness and social or personal resources that you would utilize while at work. What was measured during this test was your positive affect by the PANAS scale, your efficacy, hope, resilience, and psychological personal resources via the capital questionnaire, your creativity, and your taking charge of situation, which were both scales created for and by the team leaders to assess their employees. Now, the procedure for this was that questionnaires were given to employees at 3 separate times during the study. Um, it wasn't really stated when these 3 separate times were, but at 3 separate points, the employees were given these several questionnaires to fill out. And the results of this were found to be that a positive affect mediates your leader membership exchange and employee psychological capital. So overall feelings of positivity, positive emotions were found to mediate however the employees felt about their work ethic, how they felt about their efficacy, their hope, their resilience, and their optimism. And that was able to include to improve their leader membership exchanges. If employees felt better about their efficacy, their hope, resilience, or optimism, they were able to communicate better with their team leaders. If the team leaders were able to communicate better, it helped lead towards increases in their efficacy, hope, resilience, and optimism. It was also found that psychological capital mediates the relationship between positive affect and employee performance. So if you felt better about your efficacy, hope, resilience, and optimism, you were found to perform better at work as well. Now this is a very interesting and cool thing here, because if you feel happy doing what you're doing, it'll lead to a better communication with those in charge and a greater ability to perform your task. And this is kind of the focus of the Broaden-and-Build method here at work. You're taking your positive emotions and using them to increase your personal resources, to excel and push yourself further in life. Now, with all these studies in mind, I want to talk about what the implications of these are. Now, all these studies supported the Broaden-and-Build method in some way, shape, or form. It implies that it could be used for medical treatments, maybe its effect on heart rate, its effect on behavior, the effect on emotion, or its effect on cognitive faculties. The utilization of theory for inducing gratitude can be utilized for psychotherapy, or the use of positive emotions can further increase resilience in aiding to stress response. It can be used to help increase work ethic satisfaction in your field of work, and on top of that, new uses can still be developed. Now, in the Koch study, They made a statement saying openness to opportunities can lead to greater positivity and social connectedness. This is the heart of the Broaden-and-Build theory. Feeling positive emotions or utilizing positive emotions can help build upon your life. You can feel greater satisfaction, more gratitude towards what you're doing. You build up your emotional and cognitive faculties. Without having to deal with the constant stressor of negative emotions, you're able to broaden and expand upon your horizons and make things better. And with that, why stop there? Positive psychology is all about taking the human condition and raising it towards its ultimate goal, optimizing it, making the most out of it. And I think the broaden and build method is a very strong proponent towards doing that. Thank you very much.